Hello and welcome back to A Sprinkle of Disney. We're sharing episode 8 with you today, and since our last episode we have had another huge milestone. We've now hit over 300 cumulative listens to all of our podcast episodes. So we were very, very excited when that happened.
Yeah.
We were kind of counting down when there was like 2 left and then 1 left.
It's very exciting.
I wish we could tell who had listened, so we could do a big you're the 300th listener.
Yeah,
but we couldn't, so
that would be fun.
Anyway, so thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate it. We've also seen that lots of people have started listening to episode 1 again recently.
Yeah.
So if you are new, welcome. We hope you enjoy this episode, and we hope it inspires you to go back and listen to our other 7. Episode 8. I can't believe it.
I know. I can't believe it. We say this every week. I remember on episode 2, we were like, oh, 2 episodes.
Oh my God.
How exciting.
It's funny now when we look at our stats, because at the beginning it was everyone listened to episode 1, everyone listened to episode 2, and now when we can kind of see the listens in our dashboard and our admin access stuff, it's people are listening to number 3, number 5, number 1. It's really cool.
It's a bit more complex now. It's not a thematic trail.
We're growing.
Yeah, we are.
We're actually recording this on Halloween.
Yes.
So with I'll hold my hands up. It was my fault that this one was recorded late. My Disney. So we're talking about Onward today. Ray's going to explain a bit now, but I kind of delayed watching it, and then my Disney Plus just decided to just shut down on me in the middle of the film.
It was a bit of a shambles.
It really was. I had to put an hour for customer service to be told that I then basically my internet was just blocking Disney Plus. So I'm going to make a public apology to Rosie.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the honesty to the listeners.
But you should actually be getting it at the same time, because we're still going to release it at this weekend. But I feel like it adds something extra, it being recorded on Halloween.
Yeah, I do as well. I think there's some kind of magic in the air. And this being a fantasy film as well, maybe.
Well, with magic and witches and sorcerers and quests, very Halloween-y. So.
Exactly. So, as Katie just said, today's episode is another Disney Plus episode. You guys seem to really enjoy our last one of this one in the series, so we thought we'd do another one. So today we'll be discussing and reviewing Pixar's most recent film, Onward, which was recently released on Disney Plus due to the pandemic thwarting its cinematic release, which is just a disaster, let's be honest. I feel bad for it, to be honest, because it's not had a true representation of how well it could have done. It's not fair.
Well, I only saw it, yesterday and Thursday. Because actually me and Rosie were together the weekend before the pandemic, and I was like, let's go see it, but someone had seen it the weekend before me.
Well, it's a Pixar film, so...
But it's fine. So my plan was to go and see it the next weekend, and then obviously lockdown happened. So I've had to wait a very long time to watch it. So...
It's basically just been a bit of a shambles against you watching it, really, hasn't it?
Honestly, I wasn't meant to watch this film.
No, it's a miracle that you've managed to get through it, to be honest.
So I started watching it on Thursday, and then my brother has cursed my Disney Plus, is what I've discovered. And then I pressed the space bar, was my big problem, instead of pressing pause. So it shut down to the home screen, and then just wouldn't let me watch it. So I literally had to wait a whole 24 hours to finish the film. We'll talk about it in a second, but it's a very crucial moment when they're almost caught by the police. Yeah. And
tensions are running high at that point. It's not the point. It's not really a good point, but that's definitely one of the worst points that you could have had it happen.
Honestly.
So
yeah. So I feel on a personal level it's been a real trial to watch this film.
Yeah,
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
I feel really sorry for this film and Pixar and Disney, because it's a shame. It's such a shame. But anyway, we will be giving our thoughts on the characters, so the main ones, Ian and Barley, the main themes and messages of the film, because there are many in this film, I feel at least, and then our opinions on the film overall, and of course, we'll even be giving it a score out of 10.
Oh, I forgot we score things.
See,
oh, no.
You'll be glad to know I haven't got mine yet, so don't worry, don't panic, you're not behind.
You never have yours.
I just can't do it. There's something, it really stresses me out. I love it, but at the same time, I don't like to put a rating on something because it's so definitive. I don't like it.
Especially because we know that our favourites are a long way in the pipeline.
Exactly. And they're all 10s, and I'm like, oh, for goodness sakes, I have to try and backtrack. And I'm like, what's a 7? What's an 8? So we'll see as we talk about it. I'm hoping to formulate my score.
It'll come to us.
Yeah, it will. So I think we're both very excited for this one. I can feel it. Like I can feel it 'cause I love Pixar films. So yeah, I'm
And the
buzzing
fact
for
that we've
this.
had to have a delayed recording, we've been having this Onward knowledge inside us
Yeah,
for 2 weeks.
I think we're ready to burst now with everything.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
So, with that in mind, we'll get into it. So that brings us on to our first Disney fun fact. So Onward is inspired by director Dan Scanlon's personal experiences. Similar to Ian and Barley in Onward, Scanlon also lost his dad at a young age. It was his curiosity about what his father had been like that ultimately served as a starting point for the film's development. I mean,
So sad.
It's just so sad. Like it's sad, but it's just such Pixar. Like it's exactly what they're about. Like they're all about the real experiences and being
it's
relatable.
Just one of those things where like it's sad enough on its own,
and
then you find out it's like a real story, and you're like, wow,
yeah,
now it's got a whole other level. So
it hits a lot harder when you realise. Definitely.
So I'm just going to set our timer because, as we know, Rosie and I can talk forever.
We don't know when to stop.
So I'm going to set our timer for segment 1.
Okay.
It's on. So we're going to talk through like the plot, the background, and the reviews because we like to give you some context if you haven't watched the film before. So, like I say, I've only watched the film yesterday and Thursday. So I'm an Onward newbie too. So I'll give you one of my classic Katie plot summaries. So obviously the film was initially released in March 2020 of this year. Well, yeah, that is. Oh, for goodness sake,
we're still
Katie.
in 2020, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we're still in this horrible year.
March 2020, so this year. And then obviously it came onto Disney Plus quite early for the US. I think it's like a month after, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. But the UK have had to wait until was it last month?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, end of last, I think.
Yes. So the general summary of Onward is it starts when there are two brothers. So there are Ian and Barley. Ian is the youngest. Barley is the oldest. That's right, isn't it, Rosie?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and Ian is voiced by Tom Holland, and Barley is voiced by Chris Pratt. So what better?
I know, what a combo.
So good. And it starts on, so Ian is, like I say, the youngest brother. It starts on his 16th birthday. He feels like a bit of a loser. And it turns out that, and Barney's like taking a gap year, and they both live with their mum. It's really cute. And their dad has like died. We don't kind of find out at the beginning like what's happened, which like, the dad isn't there and stuff. But it turns out that like the dad died before Ian was born due to like an illness, and then he comes home from school on his 16th birthday feeling like an absolute loser because he can't drive, he can't make friends, like he just feels he sat on a monster's foot, like it's one of those days.
It's not good.
And he comes home and his mum gives him a present that his dad had left for both him and his brother for once they're both 16. And it's a magic staff, because as we find out in the beginning of the film, where they live, it used to be like really magical with like sorcerers and like centaurs running over the hills, and it's all very beautiful. And then people discovered technology, and technology kind of ruined magic's life. So everything's done via tech now. But there's a magic staff. So then basically the dad has left this magic staff for Barley and Ian and left them a spell that can bring him back for one day. And that's like the premise of the story. They get it wrong the first time because Ian falls over when he's doing the spell and brings back only the dad's legs.
Which is hilarious. It's so funny.
And they have to go on this quest to find like another like magical stone to basically complete the spell. So that's just the plot summary. I won't ruin the end for you if you want to go and watch it, because it's one of those films the whole way through where you're guessing what's going to happen. I didn't guess the ending correctly.
No, there's lots of twists and turns, I think.
So there may be like a few spoilers on what we're going to talk about today, but like I don't want to kind of go into depth about the end. But it's a really emotional ending, I think, and it's unexpected. It's very Pixar ending in the sense that you think they're going to kind of have the classic happily ever after, and it's still a happily ever after, but it's a sad, like more realistic one. Exactly,
it's more relatable, more realistic. You're right,
but I think it's really cool. It follows things like the mum is like with like is it a manticore? That's
manticore,
isn't it? And then like the mum's got a random centaur boyfriend. Like there's
a lot going on in that universe.
And then they unweight like a magical dragon. It's very, very cool. And I think the idea is that it's kind of set in like, like today's world, but they're all like monsters and creatures and stuff like that. They're all blue. So
Yeah.
like Pixar's answer to Avatar. And I think it's quite cool because they, the brother Barley is in his gap year, and he's like obsessed with like quests that are a little bit like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's kind of capitalized on that kind of story of Dungeons and Dragons in the last few years as well, and the idea of quests and magic. So it's like they bring that game to life within their world. So it's very cool. It's a really good family film, I think.
Definitely. Yeah.
So that's the plot summary. I think that was okay for you.
No,
it's
that
hard
was
to try and
great.
explain it because it's like an adventure-based one. So whereas when we've done like Pinocchio and Lady and the Tramp, like we all know those stories, but I know that Onward's quite new, so I don't want to like fully ruin it for you all. So as Rosie mentioned in our first fun fact, the story was inspired by one of the director's personal experiences. So his dad, so his name's Dan, the director. That's quite easy. Dan, the director, 2 Ds. His dad passed away when he was just 1, and he had an older brother who was like about 3 years older than him. So the older brother has like some memories, but not a lot. And they basically try to reconstruct their memories of their dad from pictures and stories and some like home movies, which is kind of echoed in the film. And you see Ian looking at like photographs of his dad and stuff like. It's that idea that they're trying to really when there's a really cute scene earlier on where Ian has like a recording, like a tape recording of his dad, and he creates a conversation based on what the recording is. I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah, you can tell he's done that loads of times as well.
Yeah. So that's what I think is really cool, is that you can see the real life like inspiration and the moments that have inspired this film, which is really, it's so Pixar. It's that idea of like taking real life experiences and real life emotion and just putting them on the big screen in a way that's relatable to both kids and adults. I think is really cool. That's just where they excel. I think Inside Out showed that.
It did.
They're perfect at portraying emotions on screen, and they manage to tug on your heartstrings with real issues, things like Coco, and like obviously like the idea of like dementia and elderly relatives. Same with Inside Out and that idea of like grief and moving and sadness. They're very good at it. And it's very specific to Pixar. I think Pixar tend to have the more unconventional happy endings, whereas Disney films tend to have more of that classic ending still. So Rosie's going to talk a little bit about the critic reviews of the film, which would be quite interesting actually, because I haven't heard these yet.
Yeah, so obviously this area is a bit different for this one because again, like I don't feel like what their current review for this film is 100% fair, just because I feel like it didn't have its fair go at being in the box office properly, which is sad. I know it did go back into the cinema back when cinemas were open again. I know they are now. It did go back in, but obviously people were a bit unsure whether they wanted to go to the cinema.
Yeah, like I haven't wanted to go.
No, me neither. So obviously we waited until Disney Plus to watch it again, or to watch it for the first time. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be a bit skewed. But having said that, so on IMDb, which is kind of where we like make a kind of base of like what the reviews are like for films, it's got a 7.4 out of 10, which, to be honest, isn't bad. That's not bad. And also, we'll talk about this a bit later as well, but if you compare it to other Pixar films, obviously it's got like kind of like a scale, and you've probably got like a scale in your head of where Pixar films sit.
Yeah, that's true.
And to be fair, I think 7.4 is quite good. I think I'd like it to have a bit more, but I think it's not bad. It's not horrific. It's not like when we've seen Pinocchio get like a really great score. We were like, no, someone's bumped that up out of proportion. So then Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 88%. Which again isn't bad.
Yeah.
But then if you look at it and compare, so it's comparably lower to 2 other recent Pixar films. So Coco got an 8.4 out of 10, and then it got 97%. Incredibles 2, so a sequel, got 7.6 out of 10, and then 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. And then if you look at an older film like Ratatouille, that got 8 out of 10, and then 96%. So it's comparably lower. But again, obviously we have to consider the context. Obviously we're not going to blame the context completely for it, but we have to put it into perspective at least.
And less people have probably seen it as well, which is another thing. So there's less people to kind of vote on it and stuff. And I think with something like Incredibles 2, there was so much hype for that film.
Built up for like 10 years.
And same with like Coco. Like although the hype wasn't there beforehand, the response to Coco was insane. Like I told you the other day, Rosie, like one of my friends, Tash, who's a regular listener, so hi Tash, she was telling me about how when she watched Coco for the first time with her boyfriend, like her boyfriend was sobbing at this film. And I've heard that a lot about particularly with girls and their boyfriends who normally like, oh, another Disney film, really identified with Coco.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was about the Coco film that just kind of people really felt it.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. I think because Onward was quite a dark horse. There'd been like a few promos for it,
Yeah,
but there wasn't a
not
lot
as
of
many.
like promo before it really. And when you
Mhm.
compare it to something like Incredibles 2, which is probably promo for like the year before.
Yeah, literally like such a long build up. I
Yeah,
think with this, like the promo was mainly centered around the fact that it was Tom Holland and Chris Pratt,
that's really true. Yeah,
to try and draw people in. And I don't think there was that many trailers for it.
no, there wasn't.
So yeah. But having said that, not a bad score at all, to be fair.
No, that's quite fair.
Yeah, and I think so. Then we've got some reviews as well. So, Empire, again, another one we like to use regularly. So they said that Onward, the animation studio's 22nd film, doesn't do anything so lofty as pay homage to silent cinema or forever change the way we think about our emotions. It's not even as tear-jerking as Toy Story 3 or Coco, but in every way it's pure, perfect Pixar, a film with such warmth, whip-smart humor, and creative energy that it's sheer joy to spend a few hours in its presence. So I think that's quite nice because I think it's fair because it's saying like it's not quite as like emotional as some of the others, but it is also, it's got that pure Pixar kind of heart to it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, you know, when you look at someone, like a relationship specifically like with your dad or a specific relationship, because like for me, I've never experienced having a grandparent with dementia. So for me, when I went to see Coco, obviously it really pulled on my heartstrings still, but I didn't have as big an emotional response as somebody else who had had that personal experience. Like some of my other friends who had that experience, they were like sobbing every time they watched the film. And I've always said, you know, I'm a theatre lover as well. It's what you identify with.
Definitely.
So for some people, they will find this film, if they've grown up without a dad, they'll find this film so much more emotional than something like Toy Story. But it's very subjective, and if you haven't had that experience, then because the film doesn't focus a lot on grief throughout it. I mean, because the end for me got me, like I didn't quite cry because I had quite a split viewing experience. I wasn't absorbed, but the end bit really got to me, like in terms of the emotion. So I think you're right. I think it depends on who you are and how emotional you find it. Because I would argue that it actually was probably more emotional than quite a few other Pixar films because it felt very real.
Yeah, no, I found it very emotional. Like I was saying to you before, there's two specific points in the film that I cry at every time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've only seen it twice, but they hit both times. So yeah, I definitely would say it's a very emotional film. So then The Guardian said that Onward is heartfelt, slickly executed, and potently effective as both a rousing adventure and a tearjerker. But compared to the very best of Pixar's output, this can't help but feel like their second tier stuff. That's quite a big statement, to be honest.
I don't really get this. There's been a lot of criticism of the fact that it doesn't feel like a Pixar film.
Yeah, which I don't get, because we are both saying it embodies everything Pixar stands for. Literally, it's got everything. Like, it's got the emotions, it's got the messages, it's got all the family content in it. Like, this isn't just
maybe because they're like monsters is the wrong word, but like not human. I don't know if that's what it is.
Well, yeah, maybe
people associate Pixar with humans. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I just,
because I guess if you think about things like Toy Story, obviously they're toys, but it's the human world.
Still human world, yeah.
Coco is the human world. Ratatouille is the human world. Inside Out is the human world. So I wonder whether people, they don't necessarily identify with that idea of like magical, mystical stuff with Pixar. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe they see that as more Disney, because obviously Disney do that quite frequently. So maybe that's it. But
even like the Incredibles, they're humans.
Yeah, you're right. Actually,
Finding Dory is fish.
But it's a human world because it's an aquarium and stuff.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's maybe why people feel like it's not Pixar, because it's it's a completely different species of people and there are no humans in it. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point. I think maybe they feel less connected and maybe can't relate as much just because they can't see themselves as those characters, maybe. Yeah. But even so, I think that's a very bold statement.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a bit like, I mean, second tier, I don't know. I don't agree with that, I don't think. I feel like Pixar are so consistent, they don't have a second tier.
No, they just have some that are bottom tier.
Oh.
Like Do I say it? I'm going to
Oh.
say it. The Good Dinosaur.
Okay, of course. Sorry, I forget that
Yeah,
one exists.
I was
That's
a
the
bit
problem.
worried then. I was like, please tell me you don't think I'm going to go somewhere else with that.
I was thinking about to say Ratatouille, and I was ready to like hang up on you. I
No,
was like, excuse me.
Bottom tier? Absolutely not. It's one of my favourites. So yes, I think you're right, they're very consistent. So then the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes said that it may suffer in comparison to Pixar's classics, but Onward makes effective use of the studio's formula and stands on its own merits as a funny, heartwarming, dazzlingly animated adventure. So again, they're saying it doesn't compare to some of the other ones, but it does stand on its own. Like we just said, I don't feel like we agree that it doesn't compare.
No.
So I feel like we're definitely not in agreement with these.
No, because I think even like for people, Disney Facebook groups, and people were like, "Oh, like I just find it so boring," and then I was a bit like, "Oh, like is it disappointing?" And I watched it, and I was like, "What are they all watching?" Like,
yeah, because some people say it's really slow to build up, and I'm like, "Are you missing all the humor and all the like deep moments?" Like in between. Like I don't understand.
I don't know what people were expecting, and I don't understand that. I think for me, it felt a bit like on Disney, on Pixar initially, because of the whole I didn't get to sit in the cinema.
Yeah,
and it
that's
wasn't
true.
a story that I already knew. And I think you can't please people. Like these people have been complaining, like, where's all of our like new Disney stories? I don't want sequels. I don't want live action movies. So they give them a fresh one. Everyone complains.
Yeah, they're like, no, this isn't good enough. No, it's too slow. 2 out of 10. It's like, well, what do you want then?
Yeah.
Spell it out. But then lastly, someone called Ellie on IMDb said that I don't think I've ever written a review for a movie, but I felt compelled to write one for this movie. It's not a movie that becomes your favorite movie, but I have to say it's one of the most fulfilling movies I've ever seen. I laughed, I cried, and everything in between, and I watched it alone. So I think that's nice.
Yeah.
I think that's really nice.
I agree with that, actually. I don't think it's one that would be your favorite. I don't really know why. I just don't think it'd be my favorite film. But I think you're right. Like, it has all the different emotions in it, and I know you're going to talk in a second, but the fact that you've got Chris Pratt and Tom Holland in it, that's enough for me.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, so actually Chris Pratt in an interview has said that he sees Tom Holland as his brother as well, because obviously they worked in Marvel together. So like, I think that's really nice. And I think, to be honest, that relationship, I'm sure that really helped them when they were like doing all the voice acting, recording and stuff. And you can see that because I think it is very raw. Like in the film, they come across as brothers,
It's very natural, isn't it?
Definitely. It doesn't feel forced or anything. So yeah, I guess like the general consensus is that it's not Pixar's best, but it is also very emotional. Again, I don't think we agree.
No.
Obviously it's not their best because I know what my favorites are. So like I can't say it's their best.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's like it's not good enough. Like it was great.
But again, like it's what you identify with. So like one of my absolute favorite, actually, was it probably my favorite Pixar film. I'm gonna say it. It's Brave. And people often put Brave down, but the reason that I love that film so much is that like I'm really close to my mum, so that relationship between mother and daughter rings so true for me, like and how important that relationship is. And the fact that there's no stupid love interest story in that one. Like...
Exactly. That's what Pixar do well as well. They don't obsess with love stories. It's real family stuff.
So that for me is my favourite film for that reason, even though people hate on Brave, and I'm not having it.
I don't know why. I really don't know why. Like sometimes I just think because it's a Pixar film, they're like, no, she's not a Disney princess. It's not official. And it's like, but she is though, and she's one of the best.
Yeah. So that's like my favourite. But I imagine if somebody watches that film who, like with the director of this film, who has lost their dad, then this probably will be one of their favourites. So I think that's the great thing about Pixar is, and with Disney, you get lots of people being like, my favourite film is The Lion King, my favourite film is Beauty and the Beast. Like you get a lot of those classic favourites because they're great films.
Yeah.
What I love about Pixar is very few people have the same favourite films.
Exactly, because you're right, you identify with different things. And yeah, with Disney films, it's like, well, I mean, I don't identify with Belle, do I? Because I'm not been trapped in a beast's castle.
I hope not.
No, but like you identify with other like Pixar films because, like, for example, Inside Out, like emotions, everyone has emotions, so we can all relate to that. And the fact that childhood is really difficult and developing into a teenager and you're always arguing with your parents, that's really relatable. So yeah, I agree. I think that's something that they do a lot better than Disney.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Right, we're going to stop now because we've talked all about this a lot. So, Disney fun fact number 2, to bring us into our next segment. The title of the film holds a dual meaning. Onward is first spoken in the film when Barley shifts Guinevere. Guinevere is... Oh, I forgot about Guinevere in my plot summary, sorry. Guinevere is his van, his really cool van with a unicorn on it.
Yeah.
So when Barley shifts Guinevere into O for Onward, I love that. I thought it was so
Me
cool.
too.
But did you know that the title has a deeper meaning? According to Scanlon, who's the director who lost his dad, the decision to choose Onward as a title was because the word really encompassed the journey of maturing and moving on from loss. I love that. That's one of the main themes, and we're going to talk about it in a second. But I really like the idea of it's not saying like you're forgetting things, but you're just moving forwards. So I liked that.
I like that as well.
Yeah. So nicely on from that fun fact. We're going to talk now a little bit about the themes and messaging within Onward. So as I mentioned, Pixar are known for exceptional storytelling. And as we've said quite a lot already, the main reason for that is because they often deal with very, very real, relatable themes. So things like, Maleficent, banging film, it deals with, family, but putting that within the context of Sleeping Beauty and magical dark fae and and like kings and queens and palaces, it's a lot more fantastical. Whereas Pixar, things like Toy Story, where it's like I'm so scared. I've written a blog actually about throwing my toys out because Toy Story has ruined that for me for life. After that whole Jessie story, I can't throw my toys out. So they pick relatable themes and messages, and there are loads of them in Onward. So many. I know you're ready for this question. So what do you think the main themes of the film are?
So yeah, there's loads. I think the one that like stuck with me the most when I watched it, especially the second time, is there's this whole kind of like parallel between the journey and the destination. So some people in life just want to get through the journey, get past it to get to their destination. So obviously in this case, that is getting their full dad back for the day.
Yeah.
And that I feel like is Ian's main goal. Like he just wants to get it over with and see his dad, which naturally, of course, in this situation, that's all you want to do. Yeah. However, conversely to that, you've got someone like Barley who is so excited for the journey because he sees it as a quest and he sees it as something really exciting build up and a way for them to bond and get excited and talk about the things they're going to do with their dad when they get him back. And I think that to me is like a message about trying to embrace and enjoy being in the present more. Because I think some people just focus so much on the end goal that they actually miss out on all of the steps in between. And as you see in this film, they bond so heavily in their journey, and so much happens in this journey, so much personal development for both of them, and also like brotherly development in the sense that they have a couple of arguments and things like that, which they then resolve. And I think it is just about kind of embracing the journey a bit more. And obviously that can be then taken out as like a more deeper and general theme, because it's like the whole journey of grief, like you've mentioned already. They're going through almost, this is like the first time that perhaps they've actually spoken about it together. That's true. Just by themselves. So again, it's like a physical journey. They've got like a quest and they've got a destination, but actually it's also a personal and like a mental journey where they get to talk to each other about their feelings, which obviously they didn't think was going to happen, but it just happened through that journey. So I think that's like one of the main themes, and especially I think it shows like the change in their characters throughout the film as well, because Ian is so dead set on just getting his dad back, not really thinking, because he wants to take the easy route, the straightforward route, the highway. He's like, let's just get the highway, and Barley's like, no, the easiest route is never the right one, or something like that. It's probably not a quote, but you know what I mean. And Barley's like, no, on a quest we take the other route, and he like does this like scribbled thing on the map. And he's clearly like so excited to be doing his actual quest, and I'm sure Ian probably sees that as kind of like an insensitive thing where he's like, no, like we just need to get dad back, like come on, why are you being like this? But I think it's nice because it is like they're both doing like a real life quest, as in like quests of your like Barley plays. But I think they bond through that journey and have a better understanding of each other because of it. And in this case, their journey is very much negotiating a bump in their childhood, which is actually very similar to Inside Out as well when you think about it.
That's true.
But that's like my kind of main theme, and I think it's you kind of can't help but see that because obviously they're on a physical journey in Guinevere, and you have got that journey that takes up most of the film. So I think that's the main one.
I hadn't even thought about it like that.
Oh, really?
Lovely. Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's
good. I'm glad we
really-
have different like perspectives on the
Yeah.
themes.
I mean, because for me, that whole conversation around like which path do we take, was just more about the fact that like, you know, learning to listen to other people's opinions and learning to listen. You know, sometimes you think you know best because you've got something in mind, but actually you're better together sometimes, especially with family.
Yeah.
But actually, you're so right. It's that idea about, I completely missed that, obviously, because of my traumatic viewing
But then I missed what you said as well. So it's interesting how like when we come
Yeah.
together, we bring different things.
Yeah, because when I watched that bit, you know, like when they're in the car, I was like, just go on the freeway for goodness sake. I was so stressed. Like, we need to meet his dad.
Yeah.
So when I was watching it, it was that idea of like, you know, sometimes even when you don't, because I'm a sucker for this, I've had to learn quite a lot over my adult life. When I was a child, to be fair, I'm still stubborn when I think I'm right, but I am a lot better than I used to be. And sometimes you just have to give people the chance to like have their say. And even if you don't think it's right, you just say, okay, let's give it a go. Because you're not always right. And if you follow those things, and sometimes you learn new things. I mean, a prime example is when we go to escape rooms. Like the two of us go to escape room with our friend Danielle. And sometimes even me that suggests things. But like one of us suggesting, and I'm like, that's a ridiculous idea. I'm like, we don't have any other ideas. And there's no harm in trying it, so you might as well try it. So that's how I viewed that. But I think you're so right, it is that idea of actually, and I think it's because I am that person where, it's quite bad, I'm very destination focused. I know I should be in the present, and I do enjoy the present, but when I think about my life, I always think very like, here are my goals, here's what I need to achieve,
this what you're aiming for, like
so I think I'm more like an Ian, where I'm like, right, how do I get here? These are the steps I need to take.
That's so funny though, because
I know
I didn't think that we were going to be like, we're not opposite, that's way too like definitive, but like I feel like we're quite different in how we are with these sort of things, because I'm like not a hugely spontaneous person, or I am getting better at it. I kind of like to be like Ian and have a bit more of a plan, but also if that plan goes wrong, I'm not too stressed like with it. Like I've got a lot better with that over the last few years.
It's funny, I feel like I'm Ian in a big picture way. So like if I look at my life and what I want to achieve in my life, I'm Ian. On a day-to-day basis, I'm very Barley.
That's what I was gonna say. I'd say the same. So
I think like if we go on days out or whatever, like we don't plan them to the T.
No, we don't.
Just kind of see where we end up, and you know we are very like, let's just enjoy what we're doing now. Like let's not put pressure on ourselves to have a full list of things that we have to do today. Like let's just enjoy the fact that we get to spend time together. Whereas if I look at like my professional life and like my personal life, like development, I'm like, right, well I want to be in this job by this age, like I want this and this, so I'm very that way. So that's interesting. But I think you're right, the film looks at that idea of, you know, you're actually, when you work that way, sometimes you miss what's in front of you.
Definitely, and that can be the most important thing, because if they'd have taken the highway and got there within like an hour or however long, they would have got time with their dad. But at the same time, would they have resolved their issues between each other? Potentially not, because they wouldn't have had the same amount of time to kind of chat about it alone, which they've clearly never done. So yeah, I think it's just kind of sometimes that you can appreciate the journey, because it can bring a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't have expected if you're just so focused.
And if they followed the highway, they would have gone to the wrong place.
Well, exactly.
They would have ended up in the wrong place. Because I think for me, the biggest thing for me out of it, it's obviously very obvious, is just family and the importance that
definitely
people can annoy you. And I think, and sometimes, you know, when you live with the same people like all the time, you kind of can overlook who they are as people. It sounds really dramatic, but the idea, like, you know, that you think you know them, and quite often you don't. Quite often you don't necessarily know what's going on in someone's head all the time. And how it's important that even within a family, it's important to take time like with individual family members. And that your relationship with your family will have impacted you a lot more than you probably ever thought it would.
It shapes you as a person.
And you know, the memories and the experiences you have as a child are always going to shape you. I think that's what I really enjoyed about it, was the fact that, you know, there's a moment basically where Ian realizes that although he's never had a dad, he's always had his big brother. And it's such a lovely like, montage scene. It's so lovely.
It's so beautiful.
It's that was the bit that got me.
I cried in that bit.
So I think that was just the big one for me, which is the idea of like how important family actually is, and how family normally deserves the benefit of the doubt as well.
I agree. Completely agree.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it as well. And the fact that it kind of ties in with you a little bit, but the idea that Ian, like I said at the beginning, Ian like clearly feels like an absolute loser. Like he feels like he's not achieving anything that he needs to achieve. And then he's like, oh wait, I'm a sorcerer.
Yeah.
And actually, like when he focuses on who he actually is, as opposed to trying to be someone that he envisions, he ends up achieving all those things anyway.
Yeah.
So that idea about don't try and pretend to be somebody you're not. To try and impress someone else, or because you think it's the way you should behave. Like, just be you. It's very cringy, but like if you're just you,
but it's so true.
Then those things will come. If you try too hard for things, it's not going to happen.
And also you can just waste so much time like trying to be like someone else or trying to be someone you're not, and it takes so much energy. We've all been there, like, let's be honest. Like I still do it even now. Sometimes I'm comparing myself to people and I'm like, wait, why am I doing this? Like it doesn't matter. Like all that matters is if I'm happy and if I'm getting to where I want to be. Like it just ultimately doesn't matter. Like happiness is the main thing. So I think you're right. And also the other thing that's kind of comes hand in hand with that, I think, is the other theme that I thought of was it's kind of like you're venturing out of your comfort zone. It's encouraging you to venture out of your comfort zone.
That's a very you thing actually as well, because I know we've talked about this a lot, where like I know you've made a real effort in the last few years to really push yourself out of your comfort zone quite a lot.
Definitely, because I think it's something that obviously is very scary. But when you do it, honestly, the rewards, it's very cringy. I know it's a quote from like Rapunzel, the rewards are worth it. But Tangled, sorry, it's not called Rapunzel. But it's true. It's so true. Like when you do push yourself out your comfort zone, sure, you feel stressed and nervous to begin with, and probably for a little while after you've done it. But when you realize what you've achieved and how you've progressed, like it's such a great feeling. There's nothing, like you get so much adrenaline from it. And I feel like Ian, he kind of is forced to go out of his comfort zone through this journey and through finding his dad, and he's kind of forced to come out of his shell and conquer his fears. And we see that when he drives on the highway, because in the beginning we see that he can't do it. He's like, nope, can't. He gets stressed. That probably will be me when I learn to drive, but anyway, he gets stressed. He like fluffs it completely. But then when it comes down to it, in the quest, and if he doesn't do it, they are legit probably going to get like killed on the highway. He nails it. And it is about kind of like he had to be pushed out of his comfort zone to finally achieve the things that he wanted to achieve. And I think that's another Pixar message as well. Like that's quite like a recurring message that they have in their films. So yeah, I think it just showed him that he was capable of doing something that he never thought he was going to be able to do, which is an important message.
Well, look at us go.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
That brings us then to the end of segment 2.
Yes. So, oh wow, we're already on Disney Fun Fact number 3.
I know.
Gosh, we're flying through this. Okay, right. So this is quite a long one, so brace yourself, but it's an incredible fact. So, as the story team was creating the new fantasy world of New Mushroomton for the film, they wanted to make sure their world and story would connect with people who love the fantasy genre. To do this, they created the Fellowship, which I love, a group of Pixar team members who lived and breathed the fantasy lifestyle. The group consisted of fans of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, cosplay, video games, role-playing games, and anime. The Fellowship was consulted for their insight into the world of fantasy to help inspire and shape the unique world of New Mushroomton and the game quests of yore. They especially helped with creating the spells you'll hear frequently in the film.
That's love that.
Amazing. I love it.
Fantasy consultancy. So cool.
I just love how it's also called the Fellowship, because it's very Lord of the Rings-esque, but it just sounds so important. Can you imagine being part of that circle? Like
I am part of the Fellowship.
Yeah, we are part of it spiritually.
Imagine putting it on like your CV, like the Fellowship, Disney Pixar Animation Studios.
Yeah, like that would open so many questions. It's like, what is this? Like, tell me more. So yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
I've actually, time for confession, I've never actually seen Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's okay. I only saw it literally like last year.
I've seen
it's
The Hobbit.
Very long. Oh, okay. Well, you've seen part of the
I've seen the Hobbit series.
Yeah.
So I get the vibes. It's just I never watched Lord of the Rings when I was younger, so I feel like now it's just a bit of a commitment because they're all really long.
It is, yeah, they are quite long, especially the extended ones, which I haven't seen, but I've been told to watch. So we'll see. But yes, anyway, moving on to our third segment. So this is where we're going to talk about like the characters. So obviously we've mentioned Ian and Barley Lightfoot. I love their surname.
I know.
But basically this film's protagonists, Ian and Barley Lightfoot, are arguably polar opposites of each other in terms of their personalities. And as their mum even says, Ian is afraid of everything and Barley is not afraid of anything. What a parallel. So this makes them incredibly interesting characters to compare against one another because, you know, to begin with, they are polar opposites, but then do they become more similar or do they adopt each other's traits? So firstly then, Katie, what do you think of Ian as a character?
I find it's a really hard question because I don't really know. I mean, I like the character, especially because it's voiced by Tom Holland. I just love Tom Holland's voice.
Helps,
it's just such a great voice. Like, he's just so animated and lovable. I think I do feel really sorry for his character the whole way through the film because I think he's the only one in their house that doesn't remember their dad.
Yeah.
And I know, like, because Barley only has a few memories, but at least he has something, whereas Ian doesn't have anything. And I think that would be so hard to not have any memory of your, like, of half your parents. That must be so horrible. And it's not even, like, by anyone's fault.
No.
I just think that's so sad. So, you know, I do feel quite sorry for him quite the way throughout the film, and I think, you know, he is just trying to find where he fits in. It's hard because he's a character where, you know, I really like him. I just don't really know why. I just find him very relatable. I think even when he's, you know, when he's challenging himself, and he kind of pushes the boat out on things, like when there's a section where he goes into like this area and basically like challenges a manticore to basically go and be a manticore again. And he just like comes out of his shell, and I think probably not for me as a person because I've always been quite an outspoken person, but I think I've seen quite a lot of my friends that are like Ian, so that's probably why I like Ian so much, maybe because I think I see like so many of my friends in Ian, and that idea of people who kind of, you know, come and they find their voice a lot more, they become a lot more confident, and just become like more aware of who they are. I think I've seen that quite a lot with so many of my friends, so I think it's quite nice to kind of see that on screen and see somebody who doesn't have all the answers,
and represents those
they
kind
don't
of
have
people.
all the answers. So yeah, I do like Ian, and I just felt so sorry for him, and I loved how his confidence felt like developed throughout the film. You know, he goes from like not even being able to talk to the kids in like science class, like defeating like a stone dragon. I think it's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I love Ian. I mean, I love them both. I felt like a connection with both of them for different reasons. Ian, so like you said, like I definitely used to be an Ian. I used to be afraid of everything, actually, is quite an accurate summary. Awkward, I still am, but like more awkward than I already am. Nervous, I lacked self-confidence, self-esteem. And I feel like that embodies him at the beginning of the film. And the thing that got me is he tries. So when he hears from his dad's friend from college about how brave he used to be, he tries. He's like, right, I'm going to be brave today on my birthday. I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to do it. And I just relate to that so much because I've been there. I'm like, right, today's the day we're conquering this. And then he tries to do it and it all goes wrong. And it's just so sad.
I know.
But it's also funny because he just like
it's that section when he's like, right, I'm gonna like sit in my own chair, I'm gonna ask the kids to my party, I'm gonna stand up for myself, I'm gonna drive, and like he volunteers first to drive. But then, I mean, that freeway, to be fair, looks stressful.
It looked hellish.
So the driver just like pull over. I'm like, well, that's not really helping him, is it?
Yeah, no.
So he puts himself out there at the beginning of the film.
He does.
That's what I was saying before. You know, there's no good putting yourself out there because you think that's what other people want you to do. You need to put yourself out there for you. And I think that's what's great about this film is that because he does, you're right, like he really pushes himself, but because he's doing it to try and have an image as opposed to doing it for him, it doesn't work.
No, exactly. And I think you see that as well, where like he tries to ask those friends to come to his birthday party, and then
they really want to go.
Yeah, they want to go. They're keen. And then Barley shows up, and then he lets his embarrassment of his brother get to him. And then that triggers his nerves and awkwardness again, to the point where he's like, oh, I've just remembered my birthday's cancelled. And it's like, instead of just being like, oh, this is my brother, like we've got something going on, he says that, which is the most stupid thing you could say.
Like, we've cancelled my party. No birthday today. I messed up.
But again, it's so relatable because I've 100% done that a million times. Like my words just won't come out, so I come up with some other stupid thing, and you're just so embarrassed when you do it. So, but to go from that, like we say, to someone who is confident and is able to take on like a monster, and
amazing.
He's just he's very admirable, especially he, like as we go through the film, especially at the end, and. It's interesting that he ends up being the son with the magic gifts as well.
I thought that as well.
I think it's almost like a sign, like you were saying earlier, that once he gets this magic, he becomes a bit more himself, and he has more of a character, and then he develops and is more happy with who he is, maybe.
Yeah, because I don't feel like Barley didn't need the magic. Barley already had that belief in himself and belief in his abilities, and he believed in himself. He has other issues, bless him, and he has other doubts and things, but he has a belief in what he loves and who he is.
Exactly.
And he's unapologetic about that. Whereas I feel like Ian was the one who just wasn't really sure where he fit in, and he wasn't really sure kind of what made him him. So I feel like of the two of them, Ian definitely needed that magic more. And do you know what I loved? Because I was like, oh my God, is Barley going to be jealous? I loved that Barley wasn't jealous one bit throughout the film, even though Barley is like the magical sorceress, like role-playing master. He's so excited for his brother to have those powers. Like,
well, okay, this seems like a good point to move on to Barley then. So, what do you think of Barley then, in comparison?
I do love Barley. At the beginning, I was like, oh, for goodness sake. He's so annoying. With like his stuff all over the kitchen table.
Oh, I know.
But I really grew to love him throughout the film, and I think because I'm the oldest sibling as well, and I think it definitely resonates as an older sibling vibe, and that idea of like trying to like push younger siblings and kind of guide them in the same way, and also having like fights with them. And I get him from probably our age at this point, where you don't really know where your life's going. It's obviously a gap year. Like his van's falling apart. He isn't sure what he wants to do with his life. Like he still like wants life to be like magical and like a quest. And I feel like that's where so many people like our age, like like 18 to like mid-20s, you're in that space of like what I just want to know like what my next steps are.
You just want to be on a track and know where you're going, but it's not as simple as that.
No.
So
no, and that idea of like having to like save up, literally just like fix like a really like poorly made van, like all those different things. I love his commitment. I think he's such a passionate, committed character. The fact that when he gives up, but when he gives up Guinevere for the chance to see his dad,
that like got me.
That's selfless. He's so selfless throughout it. Because actually, whilst I love Ian can be a little bit selfish at times. He goes on a little bit about how he never met his dad, which yes he did, but it comes with like a double-edged sword where Barley had met his dad, and we find out that he has regrets about the way that he like when his dad died and the way that he dealt with that. So it's two things. Can you miss what you never had? One of those things as well. There's a different type of pain, I think, whereas Barley never really goes on about that. He never talks about that. Like I say, he just kind of does what Ian says. He isn't jealous about the magic. I think he's such a selfless person. I agree. Love that about him. I really love that about him.
I think as well, I think he's the kind of person, this is where you come into his character. He's the kind of person that sees the best in everything. Because he is just like, he's so shameless about who he is. And I love that because he's so happy with who he is as a person, which is so nice. Like, that's a position everyone wants to be in at some point in their life. We want to stop comparing ourselves to people. And I feel like he just doesn't care. And obviously in some ways that can be perceived as lazy, but in other ways I think it's great.
I don't think so, especially like there's a section where so as we mentioned earlier on with the plot summary, like the town used to be like full of like magic and folklore style, and it's a little bit like now with things like ancient ruins where they have like different like magical sites that are being torn down, and Barley's like protesting like, no, it's our town's history. And I love that because even though he gets known as like a loser, like a nuisance, like he doesn't care because he believes that it's right, and he was right to protect it, as you'll see in the film.
Yes, very much so.
Very right. But when he believes in something, he will fight for it. And I love that. I love when characters have those like real like causes of passion. And obviously, it has its downsides as well. It always does. He doesn't always have that level of reality on his head.
No.
But I agree. I think he's clearly happy with who he is and he's not apologetic for it. And I love that. So,
yeah. I was just about to say the same thing. Like, he fights for what he believes in. And he doesn't care that no one else is fighting with him. Like, it's important for him to fight for it because that's what he cares about.
Yeah.
So, like, with the heritage of these magic buildings and things like that. And I just think that's so lovely. And he's clearly inherited his love for magic from his father as well, which people are so easy to dismiss as like just a childish hobby, when really, like, it's actually very complex anyway. I think, you know, role play games can be very complex. And I just think it's sad because he's so passionate about something which we don't see from Ian. We don't really see what he's passionate about. We don't see that he's got hobbies. So whilst he's ashamed of his brother's hobbies, it's like, but what do you actually do in your spare time? Like,
what makes you special?
Are you happy? Like, are you genuinely happy? Like,
and he's not, is he? That's the thing. He's not.
Exactly.
And I think that's the difference, is that Ian doesn't really have anything that we see in the film that makes him at the beginning. Like, he's too busy trying to fit in, and that makes him miserable. Whereas Barley, even though he still has, you know, his challenges, he still has things that make him sad, as we all do. As we learned from Inside Out, you can feel two things at once.
Yes, you can.
Because he is so assured of the fact that, like, he loves his magic, he loves his role-playing games, like, he knows what he loves and believes. He's happy. He's a happy character. He's a lot happier than Ian throughout the film because he's not trying to fit in. He's just being him. And I love that. And I think Ian, we mentioned before, but Ian learns that from him. I think
he does.
Like, Ian learns how, you know, it's okay to kind of just be you, and actually being you is the best thing that you can do. It's the only thing you can do. It's anything that works. And I love that he learns that from him. So
and it's like you were saying before, I love how committed he is to Ian, how proud of him he is, the pure joy you see in his face when, like, he uses magic for the first time, and then, like, he's teaching him magic. You can just tell he absolutely loves it. And you're right, he's not jealous. He's not like, oh, how, like, why is it not me? Like, I'm the magic person. He's like, oh my god, this is amazing. My brother can do magic now. And I think that's so lovely, because you could have, like, you know, someone else that would be so jealous about that sort of thing, and it would ruin their relationship even more. I think like, he probably was still jealous, like, to an extent, but it's the way that he showed exactly, like, he just helped and encouraged and was proud, and that's just a nicer way of showing your emotions to people.
I agree.
So I think Barley, like, he's a great character. I think they're both great characters, and like we said, I think they both kind of blend and they take things from each other, because even Barley learns things from Ian as well. Like, I think it's quite, like, obvious that he gets very upset by the fact where there's a scene, you know, with the police. They get pulled over because they're going way past the speed limit, so then they have to use magic to transform into their mum's boyfriend, I think he is, the centaur, and basically, to use that spell, you have to be telling the truth the whole time. And one of the police, they make a comment about Barley, about how he's like a bit of a nightmare.
They say he's a screw up, don't they?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And Ian's like, oh, no, what do you mean? And then the magic starts wearing off because he's obviously lied, and Barley knows that, and he gets really upset about it. So I think that does show, obviously, he's got, like, some kind of insecurities as well.
He definitely does, as we all do, and that's the thing, you know, you've seen before, people who feel quite confident in themselves and stuff like that, people will have that, but everyone has insecurities. Every single person has them, and I think, like you say, it's the way you let them define you, and the way that you kind of approach them, and you know, that it's okay to work on them, like, that they'll be a work in progress. But I think you're right, but I think Barley learns from Ian that he learns that kind of more practical side, and the need, I think, to listen, because Barley doesn't really listen a lot.
No, he doesn't. He just goes off on his own, doing his thing.
And I think he learns that from Ian, and he learns the idea of, like, a stopping and thinking, because he never stops and thinks. Even, like, when
having
they're
a bit of a
between
plan.
The two paths. So they definitely learn from each other, and I really like that.
Me too. So I think overall they're both great characters. But they're not the only characters in the film.
No.
So while it is mainly, like, male, the protagonists are male characters, we've also got some pretty fierce, I would argue, female characters. So what are your thoughts on that, Katie? Like, what are your...
I love their mum. Their mum, the whole way through, I just love her. I also love that they made her, like, it's really bad. Like all the way through, I was thinking she looks a bit like the classic Karen look
Yeah.
with her short hair.
No, I agree with that actually.
But I love that she was more like it wasn't like the classic image of a mum. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I just thought she was really cool. And the way that she fights for her kids, and like there's a bit at the end where basically like the magic has run out, like the dad is nearly like, you know, disappeared.
Yeah.
And the mum like runs up this stone dragon and it's like, I am a mighty warrior. Like I love that so much.
I love that. Yeah.
And like that selflessness for her kids. Yeah, I love her. And even the fact that like when the boyfriend's calling her, she's like, leave me alone. And he's just like, my kids are more important.
She's got her priorities straight, definitely. Like she's very level-headed.
She is. Like there's a bit like and that she doesn't kind of mock the boys. So even the fact that like towards the beginning where Barley's got like his campaign, like his role-playing campaign set up on the table, and she's like, don't touch it because you know what he's like, as opposed to being like that stupid boy leaving things out all the time. And the same like when Ian's quite upset about not being able to see his dad, she doesn't kind of say like, oh, like get a grip or like leave me to it. She comforts him and then knows when to give him space as well. So I think she's a great mum.
Me too, especially like in the scene where so obviously Ian's spoken to his father's friend from college in the cafe or wherever it was, and then he comes home and speaks to his mum and says like, was dad always brave? Like was he always confident in himself? And she's like, no, he was quite a late bloomer. Like he took a long time to come into who he was. And you can tell she's just such a great mum, like because that's what you need to hear. And obviously it was true anyway, but that's the kind of advice that you want. And she's just,
and of course the Manticore.
Oh well,
what a babe. And I think she really summarizes that what I was talking about before, about the idea of like when you try and be somebody that you're not, you're just gonna be miserable. Like she tries to conform, like she turns her like magical tavern into a bit like a wacky warehouse, like Hungry Horse style pub.
I mean it's cool, but
it's clearly not working for her. She's stressed, she's miserable, and then she sets the whole place on fire, which is midlife crisis to the max. She just burns the place down. But I love her. I love how like she's kind of like lost herself. Like you were saying before, in the destination and the journey, she doesn't kind of know where she's heading anymore, and she kind of loses that sense of self. And then when someone is like, come on, you're a Manticore, and she's like, you know what, you're right. And she's kind of like finds herself. And when she finds herself again and kind of remembers who she is and like what she loves, she's a whole different person. Her fierceness, I love when she like whips the tail out. And
me too. I love it. Yeah, it's when she stings.
When she's drinking all the energy drinks as well. That makes me laugh so much. I love her. They're really cool. There's such a likely friendship as well between her and the mum. And that idea of like, women supporting women, all about that.
Yeah, I love that as well, because the thing is they're not just there to be there as well for the plot. Like they're very much crucial in the plot, especially at the end, in helping them let the father come back and helping Ian like defeat the monster. So there's a lot of purpose in their characters, because sometimes you do just get these random people shoved in just for representation, and we don't like that. So it's great that they both have great roles. And the quote that I love the most is the one that is the Manticore's quote, which is in her restaurant, and it's the one where it says, you have to take risks in life to have an adventure. And it's only when Ian says to her like, oh, didn't you say that quote? And she's like, oh my god, like who have I become? And then has like an absolute, like you say, midlife crisis, burns the restaurant down. So yeah, again, I think they're very, very strong characters. I think there's a lot of strong characters, because even I guess he's like a stepdad. I don't know what the situation is.
Yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it?
It is a bit odd. But he's also supportive, and I like that as well. He's a supportive like stepdad, if that's what he is, to the boys, and he's supportive of their mom. Which I also think is nice. So
I love how supportive he is of the mom. I just think, again, I think it's quite telling, I think, like when the police officers speak to who they think is the boyfriend, but it's not, it's the kids in Magic. I think it's that quite interesting, that interesting dynamic with like step parents and sons and daughters. And the idea that like when he keeps arresting and saying like you can't do that, he's not as understanding of Barley as the mum is.
That's very true, actually.
It's a bit like he talks about the kids in a way that like they're inconveniencing their mum. Whereas the mum isn't bothered about that. The mum just wants them to be safe and to speak to their dad. Whereas
that's true.
Even when the boyfriend finds out that like it's crazy stuff going on, he calls back up. And I think there's that idea that there are different levels of family, and just because someone is kind of in your life doesn't really understand you. Because even the fact that like he clearly doesn't understand as much with the mum how important this all is to her, even though he clearly cares about her. So I was on the fence about his character. But I feel like we don't see enough of him to kind of know. But yeah, I wasn't overly keen on his character, apart from at the end when he kind of like embraces his sensual self and like runs to
with his hair like flying behind him. I feel like in the end, like my hope is that he becomes more supportive of the boys, just because because obviously he was in denial about the whole magic thing as well, as you would be, I guess. And yeah, you're right, like he tries to stop them on their quest, which, you know, isn't very supportive of him. So my hope is that he becomes more supportive after witnessing this event. But yes, so overall I'd say there's very fierce female characters, and you know, the dad as well. We haven't really talked about the dad, but I love how much personality he has with just his like just his feet, like when they're doing the dancing and stuff. That's great. So yeah.
And even how the dad can be so supportive with literally a foot. Like, I love that.
Yes, really cool. When he like taps their feet, that's that's really sweet. That's a really sweet moment.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
So that brings us to the end of this segment. So that brings us on to our final Disney fun fact, which is, during the development of the film, the story team created the elaborate fantasy role-playing game Quests of Yore to showcase Barley's eccentric personality, as well as to serve as a guide for the two brothers as they embarked on their journey. I love this bit. The development of the game proved to be so elaborate that the team ended up partnering with Disney Consumer Products to create a real-life version, which will be available later this year, and we have to play it.
Yeah, we do. I actually checked this when I found this fact, because I was like, I'm sure this fact was from like back in March. I was like, is it out yet? And I had a look, and it is available for pre-order still, so it's not quite out yet. But
that's exciting.
I feel like it would be so much fun, because it's like Dungeons and Dragons, but a bit more like, I don't know, maybe
I feel like there's more structure to it, I think, as well. Like, I know with Dungeons and Dragons there's a lot that like you have to read up on it in advance, and you have to like create
there's a lot of work to it.
Whereas I feel like this one's got like different like cards and spells and stuff, so I feel like it's more like card based.
There's more like prompts to it, rather than you have to like literally create a whole backstory, which can take loads of time. So yeah, that would be so much fun. I think we should play that at some point.
When it's available. We'll let you know. We'll review. Cool, so on to segment 4 then. So our overall opinions on the film, and obviously it's time for our score out of 10. So Rosie, tell me what you think about the film overall, like quick summary of thoughts, and then I need your rating, please.
Well, yeah, I think I've got it now. I think I'm there. Okay. Overall, I think the film it really tugs at your heartstrings. I think, like we said before, it's pure Pixar at its best as well. I can't say that it's tier 2 or all this other rubbish. Like, for me, it's great. Like, I'm also a big fan of fantasy stuff anyway. So for me, this was like a really big like win, like Pixar doing a fantasy kind of film. I think we've got strong characters. I love Ian, I love Barley, I love their development, and I love the themes like the whole journey versus destination, the family love, like you said, and the encouragement to venture out of your comfort zone. I think all of that together is like a perfect recipe for a perfect film. Not perfect film, nothing's perfect, but like a really thoroughly enjoyable film, which I would definitely watch again lots of times. And yeah, so my score. So I put Inside Out and Coco as a 10, just for reference. They're like my 10 out of 10 Pixar films. There might be some more, but they're the ones off the top of my head. So then I have to think about 9s. So I'm going to put it as an 8. Because I just think, as we were saying, Pixar, that like there's so many good ones, and I just never know like which one I prefer. But I know my 10s, and I know that this definitely isn't a 10 for me. While it's an incredible film, it's not a 10. I don't think it's quite a 9. So I think 8 is where I'm going to go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm quite similar because I've gone with like 7.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
so
good.
We're quite close. I've made a note so you remember. Because I agree. I think I love the film. It's definitely one that I would watch again. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
One that I can't wait to watch with my mum and with our family, because I think my mum will love that. And I love the characters and stuff. I just think, like you say, there are for me like Ratatouille. I watch all the time. I don't even know why. I don't even know why I love Ratatouille so much, but I do.
It's the cozy feeling for me when I watch that film. It's and
like the idea of like anyone can do anything, and as we talk through films, I notice that I'm very like reach the skies, like anyone can do whatever
anything is possible. Like
so films that kind of embrace that and family films, which is why this is high-ish for me.
Yeah.
But Brave is my absolute favourite. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the film. I like the themes in it. I love the magic side, the same as you. Like, I love that fantasy element of it. I don't really know why it's not a 10, but you know, like, you just get like a feeling. You just get like
you got like a gut feeling. I think, to be honest, one of the reasons that it's probably not higher up than that for both of us is what we were saying earlier, is that actually we both can't relate to the main story. Actually, yeah. Like we are obviously lucky enough to still have both our mum and dad, so we can't relate to the main core theme. And I imagine if we could, it probably would be a 10, because you just think like how many people might want a film to completely represent what they've been through.
Exactly.
Though it'd be painful to watch, I'm sure it would also be kind of like therapy in a way as well. Like, so I can imagine it would be more of a 10 for them.
I agree, actually. That's probably what it is, where it's like, yes, like, it's an enjoyable film. It's so funny. Like, I love Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. I think it's really well written.
It is hilarious, actually.
The animation is great. I think it's really clever. But it's one of those things that only kind of pulls on my heartstrings kind of like towards the end. Whereas I feel like something like Brave, I just connect with the entire way through. And I think, you know, again, when it comes to Pixar, I love magical stuff, don't get me wrong, but I think as soon as you put magic into something, it kind of distances you a little bit from it. You enjoy watching it, but a personal connection is a little bit different.
It's less of a tangible experience, isn't it?
Whereas, which is funny me saying that, because my favourite one is Brave, where the mum turns into a bear. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know, but I feel like I love the film. I'll definitely watch it again. I don't think it's a second rating Pixar film at
absolutely not. And that's the thing.
Dinosaur was at the bottom of the pile.
We just can't even talk about a film. Because
if we ever do that on the podcast, I'm not watching it again. I'm not putting myself through that.
The thing is, right, don't get us wrong, like, the animation is incredible. I'm not going to go into it too much, but it's incredible. So it had like a really good kind of start. When you saw it, you're like, yes, great animation. The plot, I'm sorry, it's just not there, I'm afraid.
There was no plot.
And for that to be a Pixar film, more than anything, that's what crushes me the most. It's a Pixar film.
I know.
And what even are the meanings? I can't. So anyway.
Even dinosaurs can farm. I don't know. Like...
Legit though, like, I can't. So
yes. And then we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but how do you feel like it compares for you for like to other Pixar films in general?
So again, like I said, like Inside Out is my favorite Pixar film ever. I loved that there was a film made purely about emotions. I thought that was so creative and innovative, and something that I really wanted to see, because I just think people forget that we have emotions, you know, like people speak to you and they forget that you are a human being that has so many emotions going on in your head. And I think that film represented it so well. And I mean, I'm a bit biased. I did my dissertation on it as well, as Katie knows.
I heard about this for months, but it's great.
You did.
In a good way.
So like, that's always been my favorite. And then, like I've said, Coco is one of my other favorites. And again, I think like the emotion in that film is obviously one of the main reasons I love it so much. But also it's just so different. It's so quirky, and the music, which is different for Pixar films. We don't get a lot of music in Pixar films, actually, in the film at least. So that's another reason I like it. So in comparison, like Onward does a lot of those things in terms of like emotions. I cried twice. There's 2 specific points, like I said. But would I go to that over the other ones? No. Like, over my top ones, I wouldn't choose. If I had to pick, I'd always pick those ones. So yeah, it's a great film, and I think it stands up as a Pixar film, definitely. I would never discredit it. I'd never say, like, I can understand the whole magic thing, making it more Disney and less tangible, but I would never say it's not a true Pixar film, because it's got all of the core Pixar themes in it, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, so what do you think? Similar things, I imagine?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, my absolute favourite is Brave. Come at me, I don't care. I love Brave. What a Brave. I'm very defensive of Brave, because everyone slates Merida and the film, and I don't understand.
I just don't understand it. I can't relate. Like, it's just so good. It's such a good film.
And it's all Scottish. What more do you want?
I know.
Anyway. But I feel like for me, like, Brave is a standout top for me. I love Pixar films more as like a feel-good film that I'll go and watch. Toy Story 3 for me as well, actually, is a really big
definitely
one. I feel like, because that's the idea of like growing up and kind of moving on and all those different things. Like, I love that film, and that whole scene in the incinerator. I don't think I'll ever get over that.
Goodness, that.
Ever.
wrenched everything out of us. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's
No
like
one
a
saw
stand-up
that.
Pixar film for me as well. But to be
Mhm.
honest, like the others, like I love Ratatouille.
Yeah.
I love. It's like I'm scrolling through and I'm trying to check them. Monsters University is one of those films that I'll just kind of go to watch. Like I love
Yeah.
watching that film.
It's very feel good, that one, I think.
Yeah. So I feel like, I mean, Coco, I love it. It's not one of my favorite Disney overarching films. Probably one of my favorite Pixar films now, actually.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was weird with Coco because when I went to watch it, I enjoyed it. But it's been one of those films I've enjoyed the more I've watched it. It's kind of like I've enjoyed it a lot more. Inside Out, like you, is like one of my absolute top Pixar films. I love that film so much. And I love Joy so much.
Yeah.
I endeavour to be Joy in my daily life. Joy is actually my Disney Plus symbol. Fun fact. But yeah, I feel like Onward fits in with that idea of like human emotion and that idea of like family, because obviously with Brave is very family orientated, but I do feel like I say it's maybe because it's a bit more intense, because the themes are a little bit more intense. I probably wouldn't watch it as much, but I love the quest element of it, so I probably would.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. It's hard when you're having a newer film.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't had time to understand my habits yet with Onward.
Yeah. I think it's always hard to compare films anyway. Like, because you can change your mind, like you say, every time you watch it, you might kind of warm to it more, or you might think, actually, I don't like this one as much anymore. So I feel like it changes as you change.
When you and Danielle used to be like, let's watch Coco, I was like, okay, like not against it, but it wouldn't have been like my go-to pick.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I've watched Coco like twice in like the last month. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It definitely changes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay, well, and that's the end of that. So thank you all so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our review of Onward and that it encourages you to go and watch it on Disney Plus if you haven't already. Obviously, we highly recommend it, so yeah, please feel free. And if you've enjoyed our episode today, then please subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or give us a follow on Podbean. And if you've been listening for a while, we really appreciate you leaving us a review. They literally make our day when we see them. We get so excited. We message each other like, oh my god, another review. So, and it also helps us, know what was kind of like feedback, like what we're doing well and things like that. So it's great to have that kind of thing. But also thank you to the wonderful listeners who have already left really kind reviews, because like I said, we appreciate them so much. So yeah, and if you've got any other Disney loving friends, please make sure to pass us on to them. And yeah, hopefully they'll listen to our episodes as well.
Yes. So don't forget to follow along with our Instagram as well. Full of our like throwbacks. At the minute, there's a lot of throwbacks going on because of COVID. We're running out of new photographs. There's a lot of throwbacks. We're looking at doing some more like poll stuff as we come up to Christmas. We want to kind of know what your favorite Christmas films are, so we can include them in our episodes. It's kind of that time of year where we can do a lot more of like which films you prefer. I'm going to try and get a Halloween one up today, actually, because I think like Halloween films are one of those things with around Disney where everyone has different opinions. It's very interesting.
Definitely.
So coming up next time, we are having our Introduction to Marvel episode with one of our very best friends, Danielle, as our guest, because she is like our resident Marvel expert. Which we're really, really excited for. I think we've mentioned this before. We've had to postpone it a little bit. But I'm kind of like a Marvel newbie of the three of us, I think. I do know quite a lot now. I've rewatched the films. Rosie's kind of definitely in the middle, but Danielle is like our Marvel expert. Definitely. Yeah, she kind of knows everything. When you have a question about Marvel, Danielle is your gal. If she asks us what SHIELD stands for on the episode, I might actually cry.
I might have to leave, sorry.
It's a running thing where no matter how many times Danielle puts it in a quiz or asks us, we just don't know all the letters. So it
just never sticks with either of us. It's not even one of us has remembered. We both can't.
So that's coming up in the next for our next episode. You can obviously also contact us via a sprinkleofdisneypodcast@gmail.com. For any inquiries or just to chat to us or to ask to be a guest, feel free. And we have been a Sprinkle of Disney. Have a magical rest of your day.